Hallo Leute, herzlich willkommen zu meinem Channel. Heute sprechen wir über die England und Brexit. And this is why I am a supporter of Brexit, because at the time when 2015-2016 happened, I did realize the anti-foreign sentiment from England has a reason. Because at the time when I was living there, I was also living with a bunch of Europeans. And these Europeans from neighboring countries like Italy, not exactly a neighbor, but Italians do love to travel and live in England, Eastern England as well. France, French people, Italians, and maybe Eastern Europeans. Europeans in general live in this small town, Cambridge. And I went out daily in my teenagerhood. I saw them and I saw how different they are to other English people. First of all, it's the language, of course. They do not speak English well. No offense, it's just a statement. It's very objective and really nothing other than this fact. And this is one of the reasons why English people do not like foreigners, because they're okay accepting international students like these Asians from Bangladesh, from India, from China, from Russia, who can actually speak English while going to high school there, but they don't like Europeans not being able to speak English in a shop or something. And when they go around, English people actually feel the weird vibe, because if you do not speak English well, how can you communicate in a country? While in Germany, especially today's Germany, we'll see that if you cannot speak very good German, they still communicate with you. Especially here in southwest Germany, like along the Rhine River, Rhineland. Normally, if you go to big cities like Cologne, Berlin, everybody speaks English. Of course, some parts in Berlin prefer German as their official language, which I do respect very much. But at that time, in 2015, 2016, I do want to say that I see the reason why English people were tired of Europeans. Second of all, I think back then, I had such depression and deep dissatisfaction to my life because I was alone in my apartment. Of course, I was dating a Chinese boyfriend that hurt my feminist ego and English ego, and I had this cultural split with my Chinese parents. I mean, they're not really Chinese, they're Mongolian Japanese, but they are still Chinese. Bicultural identity and living environment. So of course I did not feel identified with. Right now I could feel reconciliated with them, but back then I was basically on my own. I could say my whole world was just my boyfriend, and my boyfriend was a very peculiar one. He spoke German, Latin, Chinese, and we spoke English to each other every day since the day that we knew each other, actually. So it was quite funny, and it helped him with his English, and it helped me with getting to know what kind of thoughts he has, because at that time I already had detached from the Chinese society, being abroad for some years. And he appeared in my life, talking to me in the language which my brain often has thoughts of. So I naturally felt connected to his philosophy when he expresses everything in a very logical way, I would say. And I do think, apart from language, if you are able to, communicate your philosophy and make sure the other party understands you, you will get less exclusion. However, I do not think back then, before Brexit in 2015, 2016, people from Ausländer, from countries different than England, were actually doing that. So that's the second reason. There were indeed cultural differences unreconciled. And because of this irreconcilable differences, British people decided to finally exit the EU. And it's not only because EU takes a lot of money from Britain, but also because the foreign arbeiters, workers from other European countries, non-UK countries, do not really have the necessary skills to stay in England and prosper. And I could see that because I lived there every day, and I went out to go shopping. I talked to these English people in Coffee Costa, and in any supermarket like Sainsbury, Tesco, and I spoke to them just fine with my English. Right now, my English is like mixed with American, British, German accent, especially after I moved to Germany. I totally have a weird accent now. I guess you could see some of my videos were this New York accent and some videos in British accent. And now I'm just like, whatever. However, I did notice people who work in the shops that are Europeans had less understanding to how things work in capitalist societies in general. For example, they would feel astonished if you ask for a refund. This is just an example because they think, oh, if you bought something, you bought something. If you want a refund, I'm just like, oh, I have to ask my supervisor, how does this work? I don't know. It's not that they're new or something. Refund is just very normal in England. In today's England, after Brexit, you ask any shop, you go anywhere. It's just very normal. They know the procedure by heart. And I historically have such an intolerance to improficient workers. And it's not only because of my family background, my education, it's also because of my depression, the innate anger, and the wish for society to proceed. And because I was such a positive and bright soul that I wish everybody to achieve happiness, I tried very hard to, develop myself, read a lot, and construct my philosophy properly to fit into the modern world. And I did find the days I traveled to London and back to Cambridge, this small town, I always felt a very non-English vibe. And you know what I'm saying? When London was predominantly controlled by the British government, the Buckingham Palace, the English churches and everything English. There were Westminster Abbey and people coming and go following English traditions. But Cambridge, because it's a university town, it's more scholastic. So Europeans have a presence that is largely tolerated, and sometimes English people would even learn from European culture, but that just makes you so depressing. That makes you very depressed because the weather was terrible, and if you also follow the very strict rules, oh, you cannot do this because of certain ridiculous rule, you cannot do that because of what, and it's making your life even more miserable. But if you just be totally English, oh, because it's so bad, so terrible, we'll make it better together. We'll make it better. Like, I feel like British people have the innate ability to make positive decisions because of this stupid European thing that they were not able to make themselves appear to lose face. If they live with Europeans, they have to fit in with their stupid European mind. I'm not saying all European minds are stupid. I'm saying during that time, this rule abiding and this very stubborn mentality has hindered the English people achieving positivity and success. And I do think this has influenced most people in in Cambridge, just in Cambridge. I could only speak for Cambridge. I could only speak for Cambridge because at that time I did see everybody's window putting out vote exit in 2015, and there's a very obvious reason for that. In terms of English-speaking people and Europeans, I did find because the Brits are English-speaking, they're more able to be connected with Americans, and Americans are usually very positive. So in 2015, I traveled extensively to America, to California and New York, which I found New York and the East Coast in general was more like depressing and was more similar to Europe. But I did not want to experience Europe anymore at that time. I just wanted to be liberal, like liberal, proper, truthfully, and appropriately West. So I chose the West Coast, California. At that time, California was experiencing a bit of change as well. There were some people voted for Trump, of course, but majority stayed blue in that state. In 2017, I moved to Los Angeles and I felt my entire life has been changed. Like suddenly I got used to strangers smiling at me, but that does not mean that some of my assimilations with the European culture has changed. I just felt as a human being, we need this positivity. We need the sunshine to overcome whatever darkness our heart has absorbed from the negative and unfortunate surroundings. For example, I did not have a very satisfying family, and I did not have so many friends in Cambridge. I could have had a large community, international students community or something, but I felt unidentified with my classmates because of the early maturity that I felt more mature than others since a teenager. This is why I feel a society with more diversity and inclusion would suit me better, and the sunshine naturally nurtured me. So I erased my European influence since I got to be in California. But that does not mean England has the same fortune to receive this sunshine. So after 2017, I went back to England almost every year. In 2018, 2019, 2020 I couldn't, but 2021 I went there again, and 2022 unfortunately I had a very terrible incident in 2022. So in 2023 I tried to, but the closest I could do was Switzerland, which was a country similar to the very capitalist England, actually. And then 2024, I did a summer study in Cambridge University. In 2025, I did multiple trips back to London and Cambridge again. So I did love this country. I want to clarify and provide. I want to clarify the decision of 2016 and provide my testimony to what happened in England. On the other note, because this channel is basically inspired by this Dogecoin Twitter account, 69 Dogecoin. The person who ran behind the account was someone I know. I heard a lot from him that he hates England. He thinks it's sad there or something. I mean, hasn't he thought about the time he was there? I was there in 2015. The sadness actually comes from the European culture that I talked about, which created discord with the English culture. I mean, he just does not understand how everything comes from. If he could analyze the pieces of information as I do and see things in different shades and colors as I do, then he will be able to see his own developmental path and will be able to pave the way to success by himself. But I was so glad though he followed my footprint to Berkeley, California, and now he lives in America. So everything's all good now. I just wish he could realize it's not England's fault. It's not, the Brexit is not the fault of England. It's not the English people's fault to choose exit. Although a lot of people still blame themselves that they should have chosen remain, but trust me, inside every traditional English heart, the European influence and the European presence in England was such a problem that they literally could not accept the counter concept of meritocracy, the society based on merit. So we would like to conclude that if you do want to work in a foreign country, especially in a very internationalized English-speaking society, then you do have to speak English well, and you do have to understand how English capitalism works, because that might be different than the German capitalism. German capitalism basically is, is something associated with Nazis, right? Because when Hitler led that war, they were actually extremely capitalist by heart. So we could basically conclude that there are different levels of capitalism, and there is a moderate one, and there's a radical one, an aggressive one, like American ones. There's more tolerant society, and there's less tolerant society, like the English society. Unfortunately, England is not so tolerant. So just let you know, be aware that is how it is. They are anti-foreign, and if you cannot do a good job, you will not be able to live in that country. Thank you, and I wish you good luck.